All right, everybody, welcome in. You know we love to tackle the big questions here on the show, and this week is no different. We're diving headfirst into the world of AI art.
The big question on everyone's mind, is it stealing?
It's a debate that's, well, let's just say it's gotten pretty heated online.
Definitely. And frankly, it should be, there's a lot at stake.
Absolutely. And we've got a unique perspective on this one. We're actually unpacking the thoughts of our very own showrunner, Daniel David Allen.
Meta, right. But seriously, if anyone's equipped to weigh in on this, it's him.
No kidding. I mean, this is someone who's been a designer for, get this, over 20 years. Discovery Education, Hearst, Humana, he's worked with them all.
And the guy's a walking testament to the idea that you don't have to choose between art and tech. He's a visual artist, but then he geeks out on web design, apps, VR, even game design. The list goes on.
Doesn't stop there. He's actually going to share this very deep dive on his YouTube channel. You'll find a link in the show notes, by the way. But before he hits that publish button, we get a sneak peek at his take on AI art and whether it can be considered theft.
And knowing him, it's bound to be insightful. So where do we even begin?
Well, he sent us this statement, and it's safe to say he doesn't pull any punches. Are you ready for this?
Hit me with it.
Okay, deep breath. Here goes. He says, and I quote, "It's the showrunner's position that AI art is not theft because any art that is put in public enters the collective unconscious, and the latent spaces of AI are an extension and actualization of this collective unconscious."
Whoa. Okay, there's a lot to unpack there.
Right. And he keeps going, he adds. Additionally, machines have been scraping and monetizing everything on the public web for decades, but this is the first time humans have been cut in on the profits via open source models that can be used without permission or royalties.
He's not holding back. Let's break this down. First off, scraping. It sounds ominous, but what does it actually mean in this context?
Yeah, that word definitely conjures up some images.
Well, think of it like this. Imagine a giant vacuum cleaner sucking up information from every corner of the internet. Websites, platforms, you name it, they gather data from everywhere. Kind of like how a search engine works, right? It scours the web, finds pages, and stores that info. That's basically scraping.
So when Daniel talks about machines monetizing that scrape data,
Yeah.
he means
They're using it to make money, plain and simple. A lot of times it's through things like targeted advertising, those eerily specific ads that seem to follow you around online, or even by selling that data to other companies. The point is that data has value.
okay, and he's drawing a parallel to AI art here.
Exactly. He's suggesting that these AI models, they're not scraping websites, they're analyzing tons and tons of images. And like you pointed out, this is the first time we're seeing something like this, where people, actual humans, can use these AI tools without needing permission or paying royalties.
Okay, that part makes sense, but let's rewind for a sec. He drops these terms, collective unconscious, latent spaces. I gotta be honest, those are a bit out there.
Right. A little heady, for sure. Imagine every piece of art ever created. Every painting, every sculpture, every little doodle on a napkin, all thrown into this giant cosmic blender.
Okay, I'm picturing a very colorful smoothie.
Exactly. That smoothie, that's the collective unconscious, all these creative expressions all mixed up. And the AI, it's like it takes a big sip and it can taste the different flavors, the textures, the emotions that went into each piece.
So the latent space is...
It's like the AI takes all those flavors and creates this incredibly detailed map. That map, that's the latent space, is how the AI stores all that visual information it's learned and uses it to create something new.
So if I'm following Daniel's logic here, if an AI is pulling from this massive pool of artistic data, this collective unconscious, is it really stealing from any one artist?
That's the core of his argument. It's learning from everything, not copying one source directly. He's saying it's more nuanced than just straight-up plagiarism.
Man, this whole collective unconscious thing has got me thinking about where our own ideas come from. Like, are we really the sole authors of our own creativity, or are we all just tapping into this well of shared inspiration?
It's a mind bender for sure. But even if we accept that AI art isn't directly copying, is it still doing something that could be harmful to artists? Like, does it devalue their work?
Right, exactly. That's the other side of this.
And Daniel touches on this later in his statement, specifically around copyright. He argues copyright and IP infringement happen at the time that someone who owns a copyright or IP makes a legal claim that their work has been plagiarized. But someone could use a variety of tools to infringe on copyright, such as Photoshop. He's drawing a comparison here.
So he's saying that AI is like Photoshop, it's a tool. It's not inherently good or bad. It's how you use it.
Right. Just because you can use Photoshop to, say, copy and paste someone else's artwork without permission doesn't mean Photoshop itself is the problem. It's the action, the intent behind it. And he argues it's the same with AI.
But even if AI art exists in this gray area legally, does that let it off the hook?
That's the big question, isn't it? Just because something's technically legal doesn't mean it's ethical. And this goes back to your point. Could AI, even without directly stealing, harm artists?
Because it's so fast, so accessible, could it drown out human creativity?
It's a valid concern, and it's something we need to be talking about.
It really makes you think about the history of art. Artists have always learned from each other, building on what came before.
Exactly. Think about the Renaissance masters. They studied the techniques of the artists who came before them.
Right.
They copied, they experimented, they riffed on those ideas. And art movements, they don't just appear out of thin air. They're inspired by each other, borrowing and blending different styles.
So could we see AI as just another evolution in that continuum, like just another tool for artists to use, another movement in this long history of creativity?
It's an interesting way to look at it, but I think the difference here, and it's a big one, is the sheer scale and speed that AI brings. It's not just one artist learning from a handful of others. It's an algorithm with access to millions of data points, potentially.
It really makes you wonder, if we try to put restrictions on AI art, are we really protecting artists, or are we stifling a whole new avenue of creative expression?
It's the million-dollar question, and I don't think there's an easy answer. This deep dive definitely brought up more questions than answers for me, but it's a conversation we can't afford to ignore.
And maybe that's the point. Maybe there isn't a simple right or wrong here. Maybe it's about finding ways for artists and AI to coexist, to learn from each other even.
What if, instead of just focusing on theft, we started asking, how can we build a future where AI actually benefits artists? Could there be new models of attribution, new ways to ensure artists get compensated, or even ways for artists and AI to collaborate directly?
Now, those are questions worth exploring. And for our listeners who want to dive deeper into Daniel's perspective on this, be sure to check out his YouTube channel. You'll find the link in our show notes. For now, thanks for joining us for this mind-bending deep dive. Until next time.